After days of will he or won't he drama, a decision. Mitch McConnell breaking the news.
I've just had an opportunity to speak with President Trump, and I would say to all my colleagues, has indicated he's prepared to sign the bill. He will also be issuing a national emergency declaration at the same time.
Lawmakers had waited anxiously for hours.
So I'll pray that the president will have wisdom to sign the bill so the government doesn't shut down.
The president's move avoids another government shutdown, but ignites a constitutional clash by invoking a national emergency, using presidential power to bypass Congress to try to get money to build his wall. Democrats making their own declaration, calling it an abuse of power.
The president is doing an unrun about Congress, about the power of the purse.
For weeks, many Republicans had advised the president not to take this path, warning it's a dangerous precedent and constitutionally questionable.
I don't think it's a good idea. I think it'll be a terrible idea. I hope he doesn't do it.
But McConnell, who's long opposed an emergency declaration, is tonight relenting.
I'm going to support the national emergency declaration.
The White House framing it as a campaign promise kept, with the president's base unconvinced. And Coulter tweeting, "National emergency won't help. It's over if he signs this bill." A bill that guarantees the president less money and fewer miles of new barrier than the deal first presented to him last summer, before months of campaigning and a 35-day shutdown. Now his promised wall could crumble in court.
President Trump may think he's doing this for one day's headlines or to please his base, but it's something he's going to live with the rest of his term.
And that was Michael Woolman from the Brennan Center of Justice, ending that report by Peter Alexander. Well, to discuss the implications of these developments, I'm joined by our journalist, Alistair Sanford, here in the studio. Well, Alistair, to put this into perspective for us, what does declaring a national emergency actually mean?
Yes, morning, Isabel. Well, this is all set out in the 1976 National Emergencies Act. It gives the president special powers to bypass Congress and normal political practice at a time of crisis, involving money then being diverted away from other budgets. Now, what's a crisis? This is the source of the big debate. Experts say it's when there's a sudden or unexpected event or Congress doesn't have time to deal with a particular issue. For Donald Trump, he's long said that the migrants arriving on the US-Mexican border do constitute a national crisis. And remember, of course, building a border wall was his famous election promise. Now, there are a couple of thousand migrants who are stopped or turned back or arrested every day. But critics say, well, the numbers are well down on 10 years ago, and this isn't a crisis. Where does the money come from? Well, it can be diverted, for instance, from military projects, in which case effectively the Pentagon would pay. It could be diverted away from projects already approved by Congress, or Donald Trump might have to prove, for instance, that, well, the wall does amount to a military project itself. Alternatively, the money could come from, for instance, disaster relief. This has sent alarm bells ringing. The governor of Puerto Rico, where, of course, there was a very damaging hurricane a couple of years ago, has said, well, if taxpayers' money is taken away for this sort of thing, then we'll see you in court. And also California has been mentioned, either because of the wildfires, and Trump has been very critical of wildfire relief there, and also flood prevention.
And this does appear to be setting a precedent, doesn't it?
Well, this is what some Republicans and Democrats say is the danger. There are warnings that a future Democratic president could do the same thing and declare a national emergency to get round Congress. And we saw Nancy Pelosi in the report there. Well, she's also said, you want to talk about a real national emergency? What about gun crime? All this comes on the first anniversary of the Parkland school massacre. Also, climate change has been mentioned. So we could see in the future a very polarized situation where each side bypasses normal political process. It's not a foregone conclusion that Donald Trump can do this easily. As we saw in the report, the Democrats can force a Senate vote, and also it can be challenged in court. Worth noting that national emergency powers have in fact been used nearly 60 times over the 40 years, often for foreign policy. But some say that this now highlights the real danger about this, the danger of abuse concerning this 40-year-old act. Trump is bulldozing normal constitutional practice and really seeking to put in practice a power grab.